morning, peeps. Welcome to another vlog. As you can see, I'm currently in the process of re-outfitting the truck and trying to find a system that kind of works. Today, we're actually running out to a job site. I'm going to a friend of mine. She has a sink that we need to snake. She also has a new faucet that we have to install. Just a quick update. I was asked by one of the subscribers, Nick, to just kind of update you on what's going on with work, how it's been, is the ball rolling, etc. Work is still slow on my end. I'm still handing out the flyers, trying to find different avenues of advertising right now. Currently, the people that are calling me are either friends or friends of friends, which is a great start. And, you know, I'm very blessed to have good friends that are putting my name out there if anybody ever asks for a plumber. That's a great blessing. Again, I'm still working for another plumbing company a couple of days a week to make sure that I'm still having some form of income. I'm also working for another company where I mentor some apprentices. So, you know, I'm making ends meet. I'm still paying bills. This is an investment of time and effort, and I'm hoping that within the next couple of years, we will be busy enough to hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe even hire some people for help. You know what I'm saying? So that's the life update. That's what's been going on with my life. So peeps, let's get to work. Let's have some fun. Oh, and by the way, peeps, you know what to do, baby. Let's go do some delicious plumbing. Alright, just got to the job site. I want to show you what our game plan is. Let's take a look right here. First things first, got ourselves a faucet. I want to show you something a little bit odd here. Do you see this rubber right here that circles the entire unit? I am baffled about what this is. I'm not sure why it encircles this like this. I don't think it's properly installed. What the owner was saying was there's water always coming up around this. I offered to attempt to fix it, but the owner actually just wants to swap it out for another black faucet like so. We're also going to be putting in a new PO plug since we got a new one. That way the trim is the exact same. It's black with black, and the rest of the entire unit has kind of got this black and white vibe, so it should work. The second thing is that the bowl doesn't fill up. And I looked at the fill valve, and the fill valve is acting a little bit funky. So when we flush, a tiny little trickle comes out of this hose right here, and it doesn't fill up the bowl all the way. So we're going to try a new fill valve, see if it helps us. That is the hope. And the third and final thing is we're going to snake this drain right here. The owner's saying that the drain's a little bit slow. So I got myself a Milwaukee drain machine, a small one, that we're going to bust out and work for the first time today. So I'm excited to see how it does. We got a lot of juicy plumbing your way. Let's get to it. Peeps, if you're interested in learning plumbing theory from me, please check out my website, molotovplumbingacademy.com. There you'll find my plumbing math course, and I'm currently in the works of making a beginner's plumbing course as well. Links are in the description. Thanks for the support, and enjoy the rest of the vlog. So peeps, the first thing that you're going to see me do is disassemble everything before I tackle the faucet. The purpose of this is so that I can get my torso into the cabinet with the least amount of obstructions possible. You see, when you have PO plugs and P-traps as obstacles, it makes it that much more difficult to get in and take out the faucet. So the motto is, if it makes sense, clear the way and area as best as you can in ways that will not create more work for you in the long run. By doing this, you're creating an opportunity to move as fast as possible. So I just want to have a brief discussion about what's going on with this faucet here. The installer of this faucet ended up taking this gasket right here and putting it directly underneath so that it's touching the lip of the bottom here. What we have to notice is that there's actually a small little gasket on this guy. So it's got a tiny little gasket right here. So it doesn't need an additional gasket directly underneath this lip. The reason this gasket exists is so that it can go on the bottom of this ring. And there's one more gasket right here as well. And I think it's the same function actually. And what we got to recognize is that most of the time whenever you get a vanity faucet, it comes with a plate that can go underneath if you want it to go underneath, or you can leave it standalone just like it is right there. So these gaskets were put in the wrong location during the installation. Like I said before, my friend wants me to go ahead and swap out the faucet no matter what, but that's just a good conversation to have. Take a look, make sure your gaskets are already there, or if they're not there, you got to sort of deconstruct what the engineer of this entire piece was intending. It's not optimal to show a large gasket under a very thin stem. Aesthetically, it will look terrible, and engineers and designers work together to make sure not only will it function correctly, but it'll look beautiful as well. So keep that in mind. If you're seeing a gasket, most likely you're not supposed to be seeing it. It's supposed to almost look like the heavens above threw down this faucet and no person ever installed it. It's there perfectly and immaculately. That's kind of the minimalistic look that a lot of these faucets are intended to have. So just keep that in mind, okay? Let's install the new one. Alrighty, one quick tip that I just want to tell you, okay? What I find with vanity faucets, especially when you have to add the supply lines, a lot of times the vanities come with their own supply lines, but in this case you have to add the supply line. I find that when you try to insert the vanity into the hole for the vanity, which is this guy right here, it will allow for only a certain amount of space, which usually is whatever this assembly is, plus one supply line. The reason why I say that is because many a times I try to install 2 supply lines and then throw the vanity in, and I had a hard time getting everything to maneuver inside. I prefer, and the best possible scenario is that we get to put the supply lines on before we put the vanity in, because right here it is the easiest installation for me possible. I can have it right by my leg here and thread these in. I'll be able to understand if I cross thread it. I'll be able to understand if I threaded it correctly. I will be then able to grab the adjustable wrench plus a second wrench in order to put a backup and also tighten this as much as I can. So normally, in my experience, one supply line should do the job, but here we might actually have another chance of getting a second supply line in because the 2 of them are really jogged out from one another, okay? So what I'm gonna attempt to do is throw the second one on here, try to install it. If we can get everything through the hole, perfect. If we can't, then we're gonna have to go ahead and do some other maneuvering. Basically, maybe take one of the supply lines off. But the more you can do before you install the faucet, usually the better. That prep really goes a long way. Because when you're underneath that cabinet and you're tightening everything, sometimes it's an awkward space and it's much more difficult to do so. So let's throw the second one on just to try, and we'll give it a go. So peeps, as you can see, the faucet went in perfectly fine, even though we connected both supply lines on before putting the faucet into the countertop. Like I was trying to describe before, if the 2 supply lines weren't out-jogged from one another, this installation would most likely allow for one supply line to be connected before installing it into the countertop. And that's because of the sheer size of the nut that the supply line comes with and the amount of space it takes up as it goes through the hole that is bored in order to get it through the countertop. So it's quite cool to see that manufacturers of faucets have been talking to installers and finding out what actually gets in the way of the installation process. And by working in conjunction with one another, they're able to create a faucet that is way more streamlined for installing smoothly. Alrighty, so game plan now is I'm going to snake the drain using the new Milwaukee fuel. This is the M18 version. Never used it before. Let's go ahead and do a first impressions on it.
Strangely enough, just like meeting a new person, every tool that comes into your life, you're going to have to build a relationship with. You need to engage with the tool. You need to study it, learn what it's capable of. You need to find out what it cannot handle. And this all comes from spending time together with it. And just like a relationship, you learn about the longevity of the tool by sticking with it over a period of time. Sometimes the relationship starts off strong and then peters out, or sometimes it starts off weak and gets stronger over time. This is all to say that over your career, you're going to find that with some tools, you're just going to drift apart, and that's normal because maybe the specific area of plumbing you do most of your work in does not require that tool that much, or it can be that the tool ergonomically does not fit your body or the way you enjoy working out problems. Remember, you're a complex individual, so you need to be patient with yourself when learning and choosing tools. Many times you'll buy a new tool just to figure out that you'll hate it. Other times you're going to strike gold, and that's all part of the growth in our trade.
Okay, here you go. That's the sound. Okay, so I'm going to show you the next job that we just got. Same place, but a different washroom, but same problem. Take a look. Whoever installed this put that gasket, like I was showing you in the previous one, right over here. So what we're going to do is remove this, take that gasket out, put it probably underneath, and we're also going to snake this drain because it's a tad bit slow, okay? That's the game plan. Let's go. Okay, so a quick heads up as to what's happening here. Again, the same problem is the individuals didn't understand what the two gaskets were doing. So here's something that we got to keep in mind. Like I showed you previously, there's a small black little gasket that's intended to seal the bottom of this lip right here. Okay, so we don't need to provide a second gasket under there. A couple of things we got to note about these two gaskets which were provided. They're the exact same gasket. Essentially, one of them has to go on the bottom of this guy and thread upwards, and that should be enough. I'm under the impression they provided two because there probably was a plate that came along with this unit that we aren't going to use in this application. So most likely the plate took the second gasket and was supposed to be used for that, but whoever the installer was might have not recognized that or understood that. So that's why there was this little fumble that's taking place. So we're gonna throw this all back the way I was describing. We're gonna make sure it's watertight. We're gonna snake the drain and we're gonna keep going. Let's do this.
Peeps, keep in mind that I've installed hundreds of gaskets over my career thus far, so this knowledge did not come naturally to me. Just like in this video, I've also installed gaskets in inappropriate areas, but over time you come to realize the purpose of every gasket you meet. So here are just a couple of things you need to ask yourself whenever you're dealing with gaskets. Number one, if you have threads, is there a gasket present to seal those threads? If there isn't, you might be looking at a tape and dope situation. Secondly, is the area you're about to place this new gasket already protected with a previous gasket? Because if it is, there is no reason to introduce the gasket you're planning on introducing. Number three, is the gasket going to be visible to everybody that walks into the washroom? Because if it is, most likely that gasket doesn't go there. Again, we are never trying to make gaskets obvious to the human eye. We are most of the time trying to hide them because they don't look aesthetically pleasing. And number four, if you ever find that there is a gasket you've installed and it still is leaking, take a look more closely at the gasket itself. A lot of times what you'll notice is there are small little deviations in it or even a hairline fracture, and those small little deviations are a really sneaky way for water to get through. If you do find any of those, swap out the gasket. It's not worth going any further with this one. And just like that, we are done. A whole day of plumbing. A couple of things that I gotta say first off, right off the bat. I was pleased with the Milwaukee machine, actually. It took a little bit of time to get used to the lock function where you pull it downwards and you rotate it. So that was kind of weird because the previous machine, which was the K39, which was just a pull and push sort of thing. So aside from that, it worked really well, to be honest. It has some good balance, some really good torque, and overall I think the battery is still basically full at the moment. If you didn't see, I was actually using a drop head. That's what I typically use on the small machines. Anytime I'm going to hit a double fitting, I know that that drop head's going to most likely find the center of that double fitting, so I just run with it whenever I can, basically. So peeps, thanks for coming on a whole day of plumbing. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button down below and that bell notification so you know exactly when we're getting videos. Smash that thumbs up, share with friends, and I'll see you plumbers very soon. Kenny Molotov, guys. Peace, baby.